Welcome, everybody. No, this is not Wheel of Movies, even though it is a Wednesday. This is the special Wednesday edition of a podcast about movies here on the Movie Hero Network.
I
We
can make a wheel if that would make you feel better, Jacob. Like we can spin
I'm good.
something. No, okay.
I'm good. We've spun plenty of wheels in the past.
We've made up for that on Lonely Marks by spinning a new wrestling wheel we've been spinning of wrestling TV shows. That's been interesting. So
Are we really gonna talk about 3 shows next week?
Yeah, because one of them we're probably not going to watch. So
That's true. That's true.
so I think we're only going to watch 2 out of the 3 shows.
That's possible. Yeah, unless Jordan, because you bought All In, so maybe it's somebody else's turn to buy.
If somebody else wants to. I'm always the one buying the damn AEW pay-per-views. Yeah, if somebody else wants to chip in this time, yeah.
I completely forgot that Payback was this weekend.
Payback. That's because it doesn't. Anyways, that's for the Lonely Marks.
Yeah, we're not here to talk wrestling. We talked wrestling. Well, they talked wrestling.
Yeah, we talked
on Monday. I wasn't able to watch this. I still haven't been able to. I want to get to it, but
yeah,
we're here to talk movies. We are continuing our anniversary series, and we are in the 1980s, specifically the years of 1983 and 1988. But
the decade I was born.
Yeah.
Yes.
But before we get into the movies, Austin, how are you doing?
Oh, no, I'm good, man. Always a pleasure to be talking to you, man. I've had a long week of work as well. I think you said you've had a pretty long week of some personal stuff and things like that. So, hey, man, life gets in the way, like you said, but, we're buddies. We can make things work, we adjust, we call audibles, and we do what we got to do. It's no big deal. We're just here to have fun, talk movies. And, I'm glad we've been able to keep this anniversary series rolling because, we've had a nice eclectic mix of movies every time, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, we do. Last week was a little more. It was too horror too.
Yeah.
But this week, we're a little all over the place. We got a I don't know, a comedy drama sort of.
We got like a teen. Well, yeah, it's like a teen comedy that starts out as one, but it's kind of a drama too. Yeah, we literally have a Studio Ghibli foreign animated film. We've got a sort of movie about a heavier film about sort of race relations and and some deeper topics. And then we've got a straight up sci-fi fantasy movie that we all love. So a little lighter in tone, and the lightest of that series for sure.
Yeah,
for
sure. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that one, we'll do the teen. Comedy turns into a drama. I actually just rewatched this too because and that we're talking Risky Business from 1983, starring Tom Cruise in one of his earlier roles. And I watched this earlier in the year, and then I rewatched it because I had some problems with it, and I wanted to see if I still had those problems. Not like with the movie's fine, the performances are good. It's more like the story,
where it goes and how weird it is. Yeah, it's very weird.
Basically, the premise of the movie is Tom Cruise, who plays Joel, is left at home while his parents are on a vacation, and he meets up with this call girl because high school senior stuff. She steals something. They actually form this friendship relationship. Hijinks happen. His dad's car goes for a swim, and he's got to fix it. So he turns his house into a brothel. Yeah.
And as one does when you're in trouble and you need money.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you're confused, I was confused too because I wasn't sure where this movie was going to go. I think the performances are good. Anytime Joey Pants plays a pimp, I think you're in for a good time. But so I rewatched it. I still kind of have those same problems with the story, which we can get into. But I know you just recently watched this for the first time, right?
Yeah, no, I watched this 2 or 3 months ago for the first time. I think I watched it when we did before because I knew we were going to do a Tom Cruise tournament fights as well. So I was like, this is one of my Tom Cruise. And I knew we were going to do it as well. So I watched it for both purposes. And I actually had a chance to go see this in the theater years ago. when they were doing some other anniversary. It might have even been 10 years ago for the 30th anniversary in theaters or something like that, but I didn't get to see it then. I know of it. I've seen clips and things and trailers, but yeah, this is my first time actually sitting down. And yeah, it's one of those things we're dancing around it. But do you remember, Jacob? I ranted about these weird 80s movies that have like one plot to start the movie, but then go way off the rails into like a whole nother plot later in the thing. And I was talking about movies like Three Men and a Baby, which is like one of the craziest examples because it starts out as like, oh, we got these three guys and they're trying to take care of this baby and they don't know what to do and they're out of, and it's like that's enough for a movie, right? Like they can figure it out, deal with baby problems. And that movie ends with like mafia shootouts and drug deals gone wrong, and I'm like, where did this movie, was that necessary? Like, did we need all that, this silly comedy? And yeah, this one's a similar thing where it's like you have enough of a premise where, okay, kid home alone, he's probably either going to throw a party or do something stupid, right? Okay, typical sort of teenage premise. I mean, his first inkling is to gather up $300 and hire a call girl, and he's Tom Cruise. So just put that out there. He's a very handsome gentleman, especially in 1983.
Young Tom Cruise.
In his 20s, you know what I mean? Like, even now, he's still a very handsome gentleman. But I mean, like, we're talking like 21-year-old Tom Cruise or whatever he is in this movie. And he needs to, like, okay. And then I understand, like, if he wants to have a party like that, I get that. You always have it's the story of every sitcom or every little, like a teenage movie. But yeah, it goes down this weird rabbit hole where she's stealing stuff from him to like make sure she gets paid, and then like the pimp gets involved, and then they're stealing cars, and Porsche gets dumped into a lake. It's almost like in Ferris Bueller where you got like the dad's car in that movie as well, like gets ruined. Yeah. There's always like an expensive car involved, and and then there's this brothel stuff, and I'm like, what happened? Just a simple premise of a one crazy night sort of thing, or one crazy week, without the parents, and what it turns into. And it always seems like, how long are these parents gone for, Jacob? Like realistically, to where he's able to do all of this. I don't know.
I thought they were only going to be gone a few days. It feels like they were gone for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it feels like months. Like, I mean, I feel like it would take forever to fix that car at the repair shop after being literally underwater and in like a lake or whatever,
Yeah.
Like, it's... I don't know. It's a weird movie. This is a very weird movie.
It is. And like, again, I think Tom Cruise gives a good performance. I think he's good in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a problem with, why is a high school, even though he's a high school senior, I'm sure he's 18.
Sure.
Why is he, hiring a call girl, and why is the call girl trying to, stay with him and form a relationship or whatever. Hey, let's go make love on the train. Like, you do know he's in high school, right? Like,
yeah.
Was this okay in the 80s? Like, you look at it now and it's like, yeah, even though he's in high school, even though he's legally he's an adult, like he is still in high school.
He's still very immature or whatever. Yeah, and it's like, logically, the first thing he would do is just throw a party and see if he can get laid, I would think, as an 18-year-old, right? Parents are out of town, spread the word at school. Hey, parents are going to be out, invite some lovely ladies from the school and see what happens. American Pie sort of stuff, that sort of thing. And, you certainly have a better chance of getting laid than Curtis Armstrong, who's also in every 80s comedy. I'm convinced is in every 80s comedy ever made.
Who I think looks like he could be a college senior in this movie.
He's always looked like that. He's always looked like, even in Revenge of the Nerds, he's like a freshman in college in that movie, and he looks 35. And I think he was at the time, because I think he's in his late 60s now or early 70s. Like, yeah, he's an older dude. But yeah, he was like the best friend in every 80s comedy ever made. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to weird places. I don't know if it's necessarily that. I didn't find it that funny. I thought it way more dramatic than I thought it was going to be. Like all the scenes with him and the call girl Rebecca De Mornay is like, they're just weirdly like kind of awkward and dramatic. And like you said, they're all like, oh, let's go make love and all this weird stuff. It's like
make love on a train.
It's like, you are like paying me for sex, right? At the bottom line. It's very strange.
Yeah, and then when he opens up his house,
Yeah.
So some of those kids don't look like 18-year-old seniors.
No.
So
They made some phone calls.
how is that okay?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, this like yeah. So the same problem
Well,
that I had
and
the first time I watched it, like I had those this time as well.
okay, and how? Well, okay, and maybe I'm looking too far into it, but logistically speaking, so he gets with Joe Pantoliano, gets all these call girls or escorts in the house for the evening, invites them over. Everybody's paying for this, so he becomes kind of a pimp for the evening. Is he taking all the money? Are the girls still getting paid? How's this all? How's this business venture working out for one evening? I don't understand how that works. Yeah.
And then I would think apparently he has to give all the money to Joe. I can't remember his Guido was his
Of course.
character name. Yeah,
Guido.
because of course it was. And I don't know. I would not be intimidated by Guido. I mean,
Mhm.
sure, when he has a gun, yeah, because
Mhm.
it's a gun. But if he just approached me, I'd be like, oh, okay. Because what is he like? 5'6", 150 pounds. Like he's because I know Tom Cruise
Let's
is a
say he's
short
a
guy.
little Guido, like the
Yeah.
wrestler. Hey.
He's a little bit like he's supposed to be this intimidating presence, and I don't get that. Then what? All the money he makes just goes back to buying all his stuff that goes in his house, which causes him to
Yeah.
miss picking up his parents from the airport. And how far away is this airport that he's able to put him and two other friends are able to put all this stuff back into their house, which is a nice house. It's a big house.
It's
It's
a
not like
huge
it's a
house.
small, yeah, it's not like
Yeah.
it's a small house. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to put back. How far away is this airport? Because it's 4:15 when they call the cab, and when they get home, it's still light outside, and it's
Yeah. What do
like
they have? An hour
right,
tops? Yeah.
yeah.
It's
It
I don't
took
know.
it took me longer than that to. Well, and that's probably just because I don't like unpacking. But like it took me longer than that just to put my shelf together and put all my movies
Yeah.
away. Like
Right.
I
No,
don't,
an hour is not that long of a time when you're doing something. It
even
flies
if you
by.
have help.
Yes.
So I don't like again good performances, but I think the story just I think there's it just goes all over the place. And yeah, we start
Yeah.
here and we end up here.
Yeah.
But I don't like how we got here because it doesn't make
No,
sense.
no. But keep it simple with these movies. Like this should have been a simple. I mean, I know there was a lot of these types of movies in the '80s of like, you know, high school or college kid, throws a party at parents' empty house. Like I get that that's like a premise. It's a premise for a lot of movies. But it can be a one crazy night type situation. There's nothing wrong with that and trying to fix everything before your parents get home. It's a classic situation, a classic sort of comedic, uh, yeah, awkward situation. And I think that could have been fine. Yeah, maybe somebody invites an escort and then the pimp shows up because somebody didn't call. You can have things get out of control or something. That's the premise of a lot of movies. But to have it, yeah, go into this like business venture and all this stuff with the car, it's like I don't. Yeah, it was just bizarre to me. Like, it's watchable, but it's bizarre only because I'm watching the train wreck unfold. So yeah, it's a weird movie. I don't know if I'll go back and watch it again, like ever. Maybe I'll go back and watch the opening scene again, the little dream sequence. That was nice for several reasons. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. I can't see myself going back to risky business.
No.
But yeah.
Yeah, and again, the only reason I rewatched it was to see if I still had those same problems, and I did.
Yeah, and I do too, for sure. Yes.
Again, not a bad movie. Just a
No,
weird.
not a bad movie. Just again one of these weird plot goes all over the place '80s movies, which is just strange. So,
A movie that I think you and I
yes.
can agree is not weird, but it's just overall just a fun time.
Well, it'd be weird if you showed it to somebody who's never seen a sci-fi or fantasy movie.
It would be, yes. Or if they hadn't seen, the first two movies in this series.
Right? Yeah, wondering what the hell's going on. Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're talking Return of the Jedi, I guess the finale of the original trilogy, because of course we would get two more trilogies. as well as several spin-offs now. It's a big thing. But Return of the Jedi. I don't know the first time I watched this. I wasn't really a Star Wars kid growing up. It's something I got into more as an adult. Like I've never seen Star Wars. I guess I should finally watch them. Like I'd probably seen the first one,
Sure.
but never sat down and watched the series. So no, very very late to Star Wars. And now I can say I'm like I'm a fan of Star Wars, especially this original trilogy. Like, is Star Wars something you grew up with? Like, what's your?
Oh no, 100%. Yeah, and I talked about it. A guy we know, Ryan Permerson, he does nerd culture, and he had like a round table about Star Wars, and we all kind of talked about our history and our love of Star Wars things. And yeah, I still have the original VHS set that I had when I was a kid because it was this cool set that all the videotapes kind of had a similar layout with like a spine that all lined up, real nice in like this little case that are pretty cool. But yeah, I had these VHS tapes, and yeah, I'm pretty sure I wore them out, man. Because back then, like I didn't watch a lot of cable, other than kids shows. Like as far as movies on cable, it's like
Right.
you just watch whatever you had on VHS, which is these were one of my whatever we had. We had a little small cabinet that had like 30 or 40 movies in there. We had all the Disney movies, Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, all that kind of stuff, Mary Poppins. And then I also had like the Batman movies, and I had Star Wars, and I had I don't know, some comedies. We had like Major Pain, like weird little movies like that. Anyways, but so whatever you had in there, you just watched over and over again. So I watched this original trilogy constantly, and it was one of those things where for sure if I watched episode 4 like one day, I had to watch Empire the next day, and then I watched Return of the Jedi the next day because you just had to keep going. Same with the Back to the Future movies and the Indiana Jones movies, which I also had on VHS. Like you watch one, you had to finish it that week. There was no choice. I mean, it's what you did.
I do that with Lord of the Rings. So
So I used to do. I've told stories about this. I used to have these Legos, and during the Battle of Yavin and the original Star Wars, like the Death Star battle, as the X-wings would blow up or get shot down, like I made my own little X-wings out of the things, and I would crash them in sync with the movie. Oh no, down goes Porkins! Yeah, crash them on the ground and explode everywhere, and then I'd rewind it, do it all over again. But yeah, Return of the Jedi was one of the ones. Yeah, I don't know where it fell as far as when I was a kid. I'm trying to put myself into like 9-year-old or 10-year-old, Pez's perspective. But I think this might have been the one that I kind of put on casually the most. Just because, again, when you're a kid, it does have the Ewoks. It has kind of the most going on in like the second half because you got the stuff with the 3 storylines going on at the same time. In the back half of the movie because you got the Ewok battle on Endor, you've got the attack on the Death Star, and you got the stuff with Luke, Vader, and the Emperor, in the throne room. So like you've got kind of 3 different things were bouncing all around. And I think I like that aspect of it, that it was just constantly cool stuff bouncing back and forth. But Jedi is one I've grown to appreciate, even just some of the themes of the movie and sort of the more serious moments kind of throughout it. And yeah, I don't mind the Ewoks. Like they're fine. So I think Star Wars has had way worse characters than the Ewoks since then, So
I love the Ewoks, but I'm not sure about giving them their own movies.
Oh boy, have you seen those movies, Jacob?
I have. I've seen them.
Oh man. Oh,
I think they're
Battle for
Disney
Endor.
Plus,
They're on Disney Plus. Yeah, the one with Wilford Brimley is my favorite. I can't remember which one it is, but it's the one with Wilford Brimley.
Oh
because,
yeah.
Because the whole time it's just the Ewoks pestering him and annoying him, and the whole time he's just like, "Now, God damn, you Ewoks, get out of my house! What are you doing? You're ruining everything." It's so great. It's worth it just to see him get annoyed at the Ewoks for most of the movie. It's really funny. It's like when in Lord of the Rings, when everybody in the beginning of the Hobbits like invading Bilbo's house, things like that, throwing all the dishes around and like messing with all this stuff. Like I don't like people touching my stuff, like invading my house, so like that gives me anxiety. Which is why I like the movie Mother, because that's what a lot of the second half of the movie Mother is. It's anxiety like that. But those Ewok movies, was probably a bad idea for it to have like spin-off movies. I think they're good in small doses in this movie, and they serve their purpose.
I did want to. I found these at a. I was on my way home from a retreat, and I found these in a random Safeway grocery
Okay.
store.
Yeah.
But it's steel books of the original trilogy with
Oh,
different
nice.
covers. So yeah, and then scenes on the back
Oh.
like this
Let
one.
me grab.
The
Let
New
me
Hope.
grab my two things. I'll show you real quick. Like, just talk for a second. I'm gonna grab. I know exactly where they are, real quick. Yeah.
And then this is the Empire Strikes Back with the Stormtrooper on the front. I really dig this one. And then the one we're talking about is the Return of the Jedi with this. Yeah. Shout out to Carrie Fisher. She looked really good in this movie.
She sure did, but she was on a lot of cocaine when she made that movie too, so that probably was not a great thing. But yeah, so this isn't the exact box set. And when I was getting, it's the same tapes, but this is a different set as far as the case. But I ended up finding this at a thrift store later and bought it and have kept it. So this is like,
Oh, nice.
it's just a holder for literally for the VHS tapes, and this is the original version, not the special editions. Like these are still the original versions. And how it had it was these different tapes that kind of look similar. So you have like Star Wars looks like that, and then Empire, has like kind of a similar cover, and then you get Jedi, which I think the tape is still actually in my VCR, which is under my bed somewhere. So because I had it hooked up at one point, but I don't need those anymore, Jacob, or need to pop these into and hook up my VCR to watch the original versions because I do have this Blu-ray set that is not official, but the despecialized editions of the Star Wars trilogy on Blu-ray, which I can't say exactly where I got these from.
I was thinking that.
Let's just say Facebook Marketplace has some interesting vendors. I'll just put it that way. And people, might be making these underground, but it's basically about the best possible version you can get of the original movies without the special edition versions with all the changes, But it's I have them on discs now, so it's cool that and they're really nice. Like the actual discs are like pretty official and nice, like they're
wouldn't even tell.
The Blu-ray quality is 720p, so not quite 1080 because obviously there's no masters of the 1080. But it's about the best you can do watching the original version. Yeah. I mean, I have I have the Disney Blu-ray set. Okay, like I have the big expensive one. Like I'm not against like buying those or anything like that. Like I have that, and it's a great set, and they look amazing. But yeah, I still want to. Sometimes I just want to see Han shoot first. So and sometimes I want to see the original song in Jabba's palace and not that Jedi rock song. You know what I'm saying? Not the one for like Return of the Jedi that they switched it with. I want to see the original song, and I want to hear Yub Nub at the end of the movie instead of that goofy John Williams music that doesn't fit the tone of the scene. So that's if I want to watch that, I got to put these in.
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, I came late to Star Wars, and I think I love Return of the Jedi. I think it's probably my third or fourth favorite overall in the series. Empire is number one, which is I think no surprise to anyone. I think it's the popular pick for people. But no, I rewatched this recently because I knew we were going to do it for this, and I forgot. Yeah, like that last half, I forgot how much fun there was with the Ewoks and stuff. Luke is like a much more confident Jedi. Like as soon as he enters Jabba's what is that, a cave? I don't know where they're at, but yeah, he's just like much more confident in his abilities. Like you still have the fun friendship between C-3PO and R2-D2. Man, if we did our favorite movie duos, like R2 and C-3PO might be a heavy contender for me. I love their friendship.
Well, I just like that there's two different duos where one of the characters you can't understand what they're saying, but through the other character you get what they're saying. Because R2 and C-3PO, obviously you only hear beeps from R2, and they sort of have tones, so you can kind of sort of hear some kind of, if you want to call it, emotion in the tonality, of his beeps and things. But you get C-3PO's reaction, which is fine because you get what he was saying or what he's reacting to. And the same thing with Han and Chewie, because Chewie will, do his thing, but Han is just responding to him. But you get it, and it works. When Han finally reunites with Chewie in the jail cell in Jabba's palace, And he's just, oh, he goes, a Jedi Knight. Oh man, people get delusions of grandeur. It's like, oh, that's what you got out of that. Okay, cool. I'm glad you understand it because I don't. But you just take it for granted. It's like these guys have been together for a long time. They get it,
Yeah.
and it's cool. So there's so many interesting characters. Why I like watching the original version is like you get all that sort of Jim Henson like Muppetry too, and all those like puppets and creatures and characters and makeup. It has that kind of 80s vibe to it, with all those creatures and everything. And yeah, just I think all the characters feel like they've really got honed in on their characters. They have great chemistry in their scenes together. They do sort of an adventure together, yet still kind of get split apart at the end and come back. But yeah, I think all their interactions are a lot of fun, and the actual lightsaber battle for me between Luke and Darth Vader with Palpatine kind of sitting there, sort of commenting on it the whole time and laughing. And it's my favorite lightsaber battle in the whole series because of more of the emotional implications and story implications it's been building to more so than the choreography. If I want choreography, I'll go to episode 3 and watch the Mustafar scene. But I go to this one because of the story implications, what they're doing, and that's what keeps me coming back to it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when you said favorites, I was like, oh, I think mine might be episode 3, but then
sure.
Yeah, no, I get your point. Like, yeah, from a storyline, yeah, I totally get that. I can agree with that. But yeah, no, I think this is just a fun movie. I think the Ewoks, they come in at the right time. I think they're good comic relief at points. I think that entire last half where they're on where are they at?
Endor,
yeah.
The forest, the forest moon of Endor. I'm sorry, the forest moon.
Actually,
Endor's the actual planet. This is the forest moon of Endor. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you said, they start together, but then they kind of go off and do their own thing. And I think each one is done really well. It tells a complete story without feeling like we're focused too much on Luke and Darth, or the battle with the Ewoks, or whatever. It's just it's a really solid finale, and I don't think I'm glad you suggested this one for 83, because I think it doesn't, like, weirdly enough, Star Wars is a major franchise and people talk about it all the time.
Right.
But I feel like this one doesn't actually get brought up super often.
Well, it's like, people bring up the original Star Wars because it changed cinema. Like, it was a big deal. It still is a big deal for what it did for movies, and it still is great at setting up all the mythology of this universe and all that. I think people still gravitate to Empire because it's a little more serious, a little darker, and it's probably the best written out of that original trilogy, and has the most kind of mature themes and things. But yeah, this is the one that I don't say it gets forgotten. People know Jedi. I mean, that's
not forgotten, just
forgotten. It's just like the one that gets maybe brushed off as like more kind of comedic and kiddie, and sure there are those moments, but I still think it's a really fun like adventure, like fantasy movie, like all the way through. I think it's got great pacing. And I'm really interested in what all the characters are up to. I love like Lando leading the battle, the Death Star battle and the Falcon, like all that stuff is fun, and kind of being a general himself, getting his redemption, from Empire. All that stuff is great. I love Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine. I think he just eats up every single line he has in this movie. That's one of the reasons I love that scene so much. He's great. He knows exactly what he's doing. There's a great payoffs with Darth Vader and stuff at the end, where his character ends up in his sort of arc. So it's a great wrap up. I think it's a great, concluding chapter, of this particular trilogy, at the time. And for the longest time, we thought it truly was, until George started working on the prequels.
Yeah. So I agree. I'm glad I rewatched it, because I forgot how much fun like that last half of this movie was.
Oh yeah, it's a good time.
And even the beginning stuff, I think is really good. I forgot how like long that opening was. It feels like, so that's that stuff at Jabba's. It goes on a little bit longer than I remember. But
there's some cool stuff in there. You got the Rancor sequence is a lot of fun. Like I said, the I like the original musical sequence, not the new one. But if you watch the original version, um, you get a little more Boba Fett, in those scenes, when they go onto the ship as well, later in the pit, all that stuff is great. And I just dig the setting. I like that we kind of went back to Tatooine. Like that was fun.
Yeah.
Kind of calling back to the original movie.
Yeah, they parody that scene really well in
In the Family Guy thing.
well, yeah, that too, and then in the epic rap battles of history, they do
Oh,
Hitler
okay.
versus Vader. So it was a Hitler versus Vader 3, where they
Hmm.
did the Rancor thing.
Hmm.
Even and they had Hitler in the carbonite where he like Han was, and
Yeah.
yeah. So if you haven't seen it, Hitler versus Vader, they did an entire trilogy. It was actually really good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no. So that's 1983. There were other movies we could have chosen, but why not talk about something that we love, like Star Wars?
Hmm.
So 1988, we're not going to make the same mistake we made last time about ending with sort of a downer. Not to say this is a downer, but it's more heavy than the animated movie we'll talk about in just a little bit. This is actually a movie that you recommended.
Hmm.
It's Mississippi Burning.
That I came to fairly recently as well.
Yeah,
My first viewing of this was just a few months ago, so I was still fairly new to this. But yeah, I was surprised at how much I really really enjoyed it. Thought it's kind of an overlooked sort of '80s gem, especially for Gene Hackman and stuff. Like it's a really really good movie.
yeah, I had no idea about this movie until you mentioned it, and then you mentioned Gene Hackman and Willem Dafoe, and I was like, all right, I'm in. But yeah, even then, like there's a lot of other actors that pop up.
There's a
Michael,
ton of people in this movie.
Michael Rooker, Francis McDormand, who looks really good in
Hmm.
this movie, by the way.
Yes.
But that doesn't matter. And Brad Dourif
As the
shows
deputy.
up, and yeah,
Arlie Ermy is the mayor,
oh
coming
yeah,
off of Full
yeah,
Metal Jacket. He's got some, scenes where he's kind of speaking out on the FBI being there and all that. Steven Tobolowsky from Groundhog Day and a million other movies. You have Gaylord Sartan, who's like the actual sheriff. Who I don't know if you recognize him. He's in all the Ernest movies. That guy,
oh okay,
the fatter guy. Yeah, like he plays the. It was interesting to see him not play with Bobby, his like sidekick in this, doing these comedic bits and actually playing like kind of a racist sheriff. Um, Two quick things of FBI agents. You have Kevin Dunn, who's in like all the Transformers movies as like his dad and all that,
yep,
and
yep,
Tobin Bell. Jigsaw was the other FBI
yeah,
guy running around. So
oh,
yeah. He's been popping up in a lot of stuff lately where I've seen him just pop up from it. He popped up in I was watching The Firm, the other Tom Cruise movie, and he's like this one sort of hitman for a few scenes, and I'm like,
hmm,
wow, he was in a lot of stuff like back then. We just didn't know who he was. And then you have young little Eddie Winslow, Darius McCrary is the little
yeah,
kid in the movie. Yeah, pre Family
a
Matters.
lot of
Yeah.
big names
Hmm.
in this movie. So yeah, you said you came to this fairly recently, and so you
Yes.
recommended it. What made you want to recommend this one?
I just, I think again, it doesn't get a lot of attention in Gene Hackman's filmography. I think it tackles a lot of issues that a lot of '90s movies would go on to tackle. That I think this movie kind of even did it earlier than some other stuff, like even before Malcolm X, before American History X, like before a lot of these kind of movies that would tackle a lot of race issues. And this one is unique because it's sort of loosely based on a true story,
Mhm.
kind of. It fictionalizes a few things, but it's mostly uh, kind of when you say inspired by a true story, that's kind of what it is, that sort
Yeah,
of thing. But I just think it was a really really well done movie that I was surprised did not get that has not been, I guess, remembered as much, even though it had like 7 Oscar nominations,
oh
and a whole bunch of that. Yeah, I mean, it was nominated for Best Picture, but I feel like this one's kind of, for whatever reason, been almost kind of forgotten about. It's this great kind of late '80s, just really good movie,
yeah,
and that has these really serious moments, but also like Gene Hackman has some badass moments in this movie, and like I think people would be surprised if they go back to see all the cast of this thing is ridiculous, and yeah, it's just really really solid. I was trying to see the guy who directed it. His name is Alan Parker. And I was trying to see like his filmography. He had directed. I mean, he directed Fame in 1980. He directed Pink Floyd's The Wall, that movie. He did a movie I'm going to get to this year, a 70s movie called Midnight Express, about a guy that gets stuck in like a Turkish prison that I want to see. And then later on, he did movies like Evita and The Life of David Gale. He did Angel Heart as well, the Robert De Niro devil movie. But he's had a sneaky kind of cool career. But yeah, I just feel like it's kind of this overlooked gem that I feel like not enough people talk about, just for like
I
in
agree.
those oeuvre of like Oscar movies that don't get enough attention. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was looking them up because you mentioned the seven
Mm-hmm.
nominations. Yeah, Best Picture, Best Director. Gene Hackman is Best Actor. Even though I guess you could call them co-leads. So I guess
Yeah.
seeing him as lead, I don't disagree with that. Kind of disappointed there's no Willem Dafoe, but I do think Gene Hackman gives the better performance. But I think both of them give really really good performances.
Yeah, well, and it's a different performance, like I told you going into it, from Willem Dafoe, who's not playing like a villain. He's not playing like a off the hinges kind of guy. He's more playing the straight man in this movie.
Yeah,
As far as
he's by the books.
he's the by the books. Like we gotta prosecute these people. We gotta collect the evidence. We gotta find the body. We gotta do this. And we gotta watch these people. We gotta put tabs on. We gotta set up the headquarters. In the church or whatever they set up. And we gotta do this, that, and the other. And Gene Hackman's like more of the guy. Not that he's like a dirty cop or anything, just he's the guy that's more willing to like dig into like the town and like talk to people and go kind of skirt the lines of like what an agent is supposed to do. He kind of almost forms a relationship with Frances McDormand like in the movie, and yeah, he's more willing to like go confront Michael Rooker and them like at the bar, at their little like hangout, and damn near take Michael Rooker's dick off, grabbing it, like in a really badass moment.
That was great.
That scene is amazing. He's such a badass in that scene. He's great. And yeah, he's good. And yeah, it's just, I'm not gonna say it's like a fun movie because it's not like a fun movie. But I do think it's got a good pace. Like I think there's some good heavy hitting issues. But I do think there's some really compelling, like charismatic stuff in here too. I mean, say what you will about obviously the content matter, but everybody's playing their roles really, really well. Michael Rooker is great for the role he's playing.
Yeah.
Arlie Army is great for the role he's playing. Brad Dourif is great for the role he's playing. Like all these guys, they're very believable in their racism and their despicable acts and things like that. Very, very believable.
The part where I almost cheered at 2:00 in the morning when I was watching this, when they finally got arrested.
Right.
Or when Gene also throwing them all around the barbershop.
But and it's also showing like that there are these counties even to this day in like places like backwoods Mississippi or Alabama that have kind of their own little rules and their own little society, where sometimes, and for a long time it's like everybody was afraid to go in there and do anything about it. They kind of ran everything because as they find out here, especially Willem Dafoe does, it's like, well, we can take him to court, but all the judges are kind of the racist too, like it's all the judges that came from this town, and where's it going to go? It's not going to go anywhere. We got to find, the super crazy hard evidence and take it elsewhere, like we have to do that.
Federal court,
you got to take it to the federal courts because this county judge ain't gonna do nothing about anything. They're in their pockets, and yeah, they rile up the citizens, against all these people who they feel are kind of, these agents who are kind of invading their home and, taking over the town. And I'm not saying the race stuff is good, but you can kind of see their perspective as far as they're literally being invaded by this FBI, group for like a pretty long period of time. They're setting up shop. But obviously for good reason, because there have been 3 people that have been murdered. But yeah, it's, I just think it's really, really good and overlooked. And I just think more people need to talk about this movie, and kind of how important it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was a different performance for Willem Dafoe. Yeah, it's weird saying that because this is a 1988 movie, and like everything. I'm pretty sure everything I'd seen has come, after 1988 with Willem Dafoe.
Sure.
Like your Spider-Man, the Florida. Well, I guess the Florida Project. He's playing more of
Well,
a
this is right after
character.
Platoon, where he had his famous death scene, where he's getting shot and he's got his arms in the air. Like he kind of took off with Platoon,
Yeah.
and then he was in this movie. This movie wasn't like a huge like box office hit, but it was like an Oscar movie again. It got some attention, and then he started getting more mainstream. So I just watched To Live and Die in L.A. I just said that the William Friedkin movie '85 is actually before Platoon, and he's the villain in that, and he's really good in that movie as well. So I mean, he's been working for a long time, like 40 plus years. I mean, he's been, working his ass off. And I just think there's certain roles like this that get overlooked where he's really, really good in it. And think about it from his perspective. He's still a relatively young actor, I think in his late 20s, early 30s here. And you're working against Gene Hackman, who's well established as like one of the titans of Hollywood at this point, for the last 20 years before that or whatever. And that had to be super intimidating, that you're basically co-leading a movie with Gene Hackman.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, he holds his own.
Mm-hmm.
That I especially remember that scene where they find out that Frances McDormand is in the hospital because she gets beat by her husband, and who is Brad Dourif. They're a couple in the movie. For people who haven't seen this, and I think that's like might be my favorite scene from like an acting standpoint as far as Willem Dafoe goes. Because the emotion he shows, and like I think it's just incredible. And like when he pulls the gun on him, I've been trying to do this by the book, but it's not working. So let's do it your way.
No, the frustration builds because he sees literally, like we said with the judge, like he tries to do it by the book and it doesn't work, and it's like we got to go skirt the rules and go around in some other ways and get a little dirtier and get a little grittier, and he has to come around to Gene Hackman's sort of way of thinking. Sometimes you gotta push the boundaries, of what you gotta do. And you can feel his frustration kind of building throughout the movie and, his little outbursts, but I think they have really good chemistry. I think Gene Hackman and Frances McDormand scenes together, where they're just talking, are really, really good, kind of behind Brad Dourif's back. And she's great. Yeah. And this is way before Fargo. I mean, this is like 8 years before Fargo, where she would really super break out. And you could tell she was already super talented here. For sure.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that this is an Oscar winner. I am surprised that this is an Oscar winner for best cinematography. I was just looking it up.
Yeah,
and it had a best sound nomination as well, which surprised me because I guess maybe I wasn't like just like listening and like, oh, this is really good sound. Like it doesn't seem like one of those movies. But then again, maybe in the 80s, like it was a different thing because now you got all these movies, like all these superhero movies, your Fast and Furious, and all these big blockbusters. Which even you had blockbusters back then too, like not like you have now.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm surprised it wasn't nominated for score. I like the score to this movie a lot. That sort of score that kind of thumps throughout the movie when they're the kind of dum 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 dum. Like it's a very brooding score, and lets that these guys are in some danger every time they're kind of just roaming around town. It always feels like they're being watched, which they are for most of the time. It's real perilous for the people who throughout the movie we see actually the black people who talk to the FBI and get like attacked and beaten up, and some of their houses get burned and one of their churches gets burned, and it's a real perilous situation, man. And there's some heartbreaking scenes throughout this thing, especially like I said with Darius McCrary, the Eddie Winslow kid, from Family Matters, like, and some of his stuff, with his family getting intimidated and things. And he's really good. There's heartbreaking stuff here, but it still kind of has a happy ending in the end when these people kind of get what's coming to them eventually. It takes a while, but to upend people that are rooted in this much, and this kind of it's tough. Sure.
Yeah. So no. This was a really good one. It's not a movie that I don't know how often I'll go back and rewatch it, but I will go back and rewatch it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I would recommend it. I watched it on Paramount. So it's streaming on Paramount.
I think when I watched it, it was on Tubi, our favorite streaming service. I watched it. Yes.
Yeah. So Tubi, if you don't have Paramount. But highly recommend it. I'm glad you recommended it for this. I'm glad I watched it.
Well, I just knew you're a Willem Dafoe fan. You're trying to expand
Yeah,
your
yeah, I've
filmography.
been
So
watching. Yeah, I need
yeah,
to
lots of
watch a
stuff.
few more of his. I've got a
I
few more.
wish I wish To Live and Die in LA, now that it's on the 4K that I bought, is streaming, but it's not, because I think you would dig it. It's a really good movie, but that's another great like Willem Dafoe like kind of crazy villain performance, that I think you would dig. As a fan of crazy Willem Dafoe, you would love it. So
Crazy Willem Dafoe is great.
it's fun. Yeah. So I wish that one was more available, because I think you'd like that movie as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. So the last movie we'll talk about from 1988. This is right up my wheelhouse. This is one of
There
my
you go.
favorite movies.
Mhm.
We're talking anime. We're not just talking animated though. We're talking Japanese animation.
Anime.
With My Neighbor Totoro celebrating its 35th anniversary. I think in the description I put 45th. I will fix that. I think I typed it and then I was like, oh, I need to fix that. Didn't fix it.
You're still stuck in 70s mode from last week, right?
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Uh-huh.
My Neighbor Totoro. It's a Studio Ghibli from Hayao Miyazaki, and this was I think you actually suggested it, and as soon as you suggested it, I was like, absolutely.
Well, I had just watched it for a movie battleground match against Jay Burns, because he picked Studio Ghibli. Of course, he's a big fan. So it was about 80s, Ghibli, and I had to argue against Grave of the Fireflies, which was tough. But I picked Totoro just because I didn't know what else to pick, and I figured, well, he's the mascot of the entire company, so there must be something to that, So I figure I'll go with that. So yeah, I did actually watch it for that. I tried my best to watch the original Japanese version with the subtitles, and I know some people like the Ghibli version because they do a good job with their voice casting with the American voices. They usually get some pretty high-profile actors for the most part, right? I mean,
they got I think it was Dakota Fanning for one of the voices. I think maybe they got both Fannings actually for the sisters. I'd have to look it up. I can't remember, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm looking up here. I was trying to see if it's only listing on the Wikipedia the Japanese. Okay, no, here's the the English voices. I was trying to see if there's any recognizable ones. That must have been another even dub, because the original one was a whole different English cast. Maybe they redubbed it again later for other special editions. I know they've done that before for the older movies. They'll put out. They would put out different DVDs, I think, in the early 2000s when Disney kind of, not acquired them. Remember, Disney kind of partnered up with them in the early 2000s, put out some.
Yeah. So yeah, the one So I'm looking at the Wikipedia. They have an English voice actor from, was it 1989 and 1993, and then they have the one that Disney did in 2005, and the sisters were Dakota and Elle Fanning.
Tim Daly is the dad. That's actually the guy who did Superman for a long time on the animated series. Pat Carroll, that's Ursula as Granny.
Yeah, Leah Salonga.
Ursula herself, and then Frank Welker, of course, as Totoro, because he does every animal and creature voice on the planet. Yeah. So that makes
Totoro
sense.
and the cat bus.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, no, I don't mind the Disney dub. I think I watch that more than I do the Japanese just original version. But I think for everyone's first time watching like a Japanese animated movie, I think absolutely go with the original. Go with it. Don't go with the dub. Use subtitles. Read. It's the best way to go.
I put them on for English movies anyway, so I read them regardless. So. I had subtitles on for Mississippi Burning,
oh yeah, me too. Yeah,
I put them on for it's my default setting on all my streaming services.
Oh yeah, mine too.
Automatic subtitles unless I turn them off. Yeah,
there will be some Blu-rays I'll buy, or even DVDs if the movie's not available on Blu-ray yet, where subtitles aren't an option.
Yeah, and I get mad, right? It makes you mad.
Yeah, I kind of get annoyed. I'm like,
but I want to make sure I don't miss any dialogue. Where's my subtitles? I feel like I have a legitimate complaint here.
Yeah, it's like, I want to know what they're saying. I didn't quite get it. jerks.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So absolutely go with the subtitles first. Don't go dub. I think that's the best way to go. But again, I think this is one where I think this, the Disney voice actors, I think they do a good job. I absolutely do. Again, like I said before we went live, I know I absolutely love this movie, but I'll be honest, I don't have a lot to say because I think it's a fairly simple movie. When you think about it, like it's these sisters who move into this new house with their dad. Their mom is in the hospital. They encounter soot gremlins, and then Totoro. They get introduced to Totoro. You know, I I just think it's a fun, like it's like 90 minutes. It's not even that it's not that long. It's no Princess Mononoke. So if you think all of these Japanese anime movies are close to 2 hours,
Two and a half hours. Yeah.
not the case.
No.
But
I may have picked that one on my battleground because it was 90 minutes. Maybe might have done that too subtly. I can get through this faster than all the other ones.
So, what were your initial thoughts when because you've only seen it one time, right?
Yeah, I've only seen it the one time. But yeah, I mean, I again with most of these movies, I can't see anything bad about them. Technically, they're gorgeous to look at. I mean, they're beautiful. I streamed it on Max, like it looked great. There's little details that I think Miyazaki puts in there. Like there's like a waterfall and like a river at one point, and there's like a glass bottle or two, like trash around it, which is like a subtle detail, but like I appreciated things like that, because there is stuff like that on hiking. I've been to hiking trails and waterfalls around here, and like there's always beer cans, that people tossed around the side or whatever. So I appreciate the little details of that. I think the relationship that the two daughters have with the dad is interesting. Them kind of adjusting to this new house and chasing these spirits in the attic, all over the place. And, it's that childhood imagination thing. I mean, I think that's the real theme of this movie is kids connecting with their imagination and kind of how they perceive the world as opposed to the adult view that they don't see the world like kids do. And you can kind of play pretend and use your imagination. Totoro is kind of the embodiment of like a kid's imagination of like, I think it's supposed to be like he's supposed to represent sort of nature personified or something like that, the nature spirit or whatever you want to call it, or again that kid's view of everything. So I thought that was interesting, how it's just a lot of it's just the way kids see nature and the way they play pretend. We all played pretend when we were kids, you play a game, in the backyard and you're pretending things, and that's kind of what it is. And them exploring the world through their imagination. I think there's good themes. I thought the pacing was pretty good. I was never really bored watching it. It's just, it's not really my thing. These movies aren't the ones I gravitate to, but for what it was, like I could see little kids watching this and getting really into, the characters of the girls and relating to them, and and just thinking Totoro's cute because Totoro is cute. The cat bus is cute. The cat bus is fun. That's good stuff. But I thought it gets really very emotional with the mother and the grandmother stuff at the end too. I think they know when to kind of inject those real life themes in there too. Away from all the imaginary stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I always say this about Japanese animation. This is kind of what you started with. If you don't like the story, you'll at least appreciate the animation.
How it looks. Hence, The Wind Rises. Weird movie as far as its themes and things, but man, is it gorgeous to look at. I'll tell you that on Blu-ray. Yeah. It's a showcase, for sure.
And I think it's only gotten better too. Like Miyazaki's got a new movie coming out soon.
Okay, that's right, he does.
I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but I think I saw some images from it, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Another example. It's not a Ghibli movie, but Your Name. I think Your Name is one of the most beautiful movies that I've ever seen, like from an animated standpoint. And the thing,
The Boy and the Heron.
By the Boy and the Heron. Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure when it's coming out in America.
It's already been released in Japan.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine it might be out later this year, at least on like a Fathom event or something like that. Probably it probably won't get like a wide release, but maybe one of those like Fathom events things. They'll stream it. Then we usually what they do for that is they'll stream the Japanese version and the dubbed version usually in different show times. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's exciting for fans of him for sure. Supposed to be his final film, right? Like he's supposed to retire.
I think, yeah, because he was retired, I think, and because I think his last movie was 2015, which might have been The Wind Rises. I can't remember. And so 8 years. It's been 8 years since he directed a movie, and this is the last Studio Ghibli movie. They tried to go computer animated, and it wasn't very well received. I haven't watched it yet. I have it because, of course, I do.
Yeah.
I just haven't put it on yet. I haven't heard great things, but I'm still intrigued at what the animation looks like. I don't know that I've ever watched a computer animated anime movie, so I'm intrigued. But I think the major criticism I heard in the movie was the story overall, which is a shame because I think most of the time the story for these anime movies are pretty unique, in my opinion. So
sure.
But no, I think what you said about Totoro is like if you're a non-anime fan, like you still get it. Like you understand why people like these movies, even if they're not for you. Which I think is great. I think people, you cannot like the movie, but you can appreciate it, and I think that's one of the things I love is that when people can still appreciate the craft.
No, I can 100% appreciate the technical craft of these Ghibli movies. You know what I mean? Like Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away. Like as much as I'm not as into like the way those movies go, just like the stories and things. I just can't get sucked into them. But man, like I pop them on a Blu-ray and they look amazing. They look incredible, and I could see people getting swept away in this style and it really. Being like almost like a book, kind of come to life on a screen or something like that, and it's a unique style for sure that I know people are really, really into. And hey, as a nerd, hey, if you nerd out over these movies, cool, man. And as I've gone older, all I've said is just it's not for me, but if it's for you. Awesome,
Absolutely.
like you're into it. Cool, I got no problem with that because we're all into something. Not everybody's into wrestling, Jacob. So it's just not for some people. But if you're into this stuff, man, more power to you. I wish I could be as much enthusiasm as some people do for these movies, but I certainly appreciate the craft for sure. Like I will never disrespect Miyazaki as a director, as a creator, like ever. Like all this stuff is pretty incredible, on its own.
Yeah, I love these movies. This is I go back and forth on this one and Spirited Away, like you mentioned, but also Kiki's Delivery Service. Like those are kind of my top three, and every day like a different one could be number one. I think I just really love those.
My ex was really into these movies, and she liked Ponyo too. She was a big Ponyo.
That's a fun one. Yeah, that's a fun one. So yeah, I could talk about Ghibli movies for quite some time, but
sure.
Considering this isn't a Saturday where we're finishing at like 8:00 in the evening, it is almost bedtime for some people because it is during the week.
Yes.
I think that'll be a good place to wrap it up. So yeah, we will continue this next week. Not I say next week, not next Wednesday, but not even next. Maybe next Saturday.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure out the date. But the next time that we go live, we will be talking 90s movies.
90s. Yeah.
Austin, why don't you?
Yes, I've got them.
90s movies.
So for our, I can't. Again, it's weird to say 30th anniversary and associated with 90s, but that's weird. But at least for me, growing up in the 90s, makes me feel old. But yeah, again, we've got an interesting mix of movies, a little bit of everything for the 90s. So I think we picked a nice spread of things. So we've got The Fugitive. Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford,
First
in another Oscar-nominated film. It'll be our Oscar-nominated film, but it's kind of an action movie, kind of a suspense thriller. But it was nominated for Best Picture. Tommy Lee Jones won for Best Supporting Actor. You know what I mean? Like it's got some things going for it. I've seen the movie enough times, but I'll probably rewatch it. It's been probably a couple of years since I sat down and watched it start to finish. So I'll sit down and watch that again. A movie I watched pretty recently, but if I need to rewatch it, it's a crisp, clean 70 minutes. We're Back, A Dinosaur Story, which I don't even remember how we picked this one, but we were just
I don't either.
I think it was just like, hey, we haven't seen that movie in a while. Like, let's see if it holds up at all. Because
I haven't watched it in a long time, so I'm excited to rewatch it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating movie. It's got a crazy deep voice cast, that's for sure. Like a nutty. It's like John Goodman, Charles Fleischer, who was Roger Rabbit, Rio Perlman, Jay Leno, Walter Cronkite, Julia Child, Kenneth Mars, Martin Short, Yardley Smith. A crazy, and some people that did the American Tail movies and things. So there's some talent behind it. Steven Spielberg was involved in this one, like as a producer and stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting one that I know. We'll talk about it, but I rented this one a lot when I was a kid, so it was a kid favorite. But yeah, we'll talk. We'll see if it holds up.
Makes sense that Spielberg was involved. He does know a thing or two about dinosaur movies.
And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right from my rewatch, there's a blatant Jurassic Park reference in the middle of the movie, where I believe it's like playing at a theater while there's like a parade going on or something like that, like right in the forefront. You know what I mean? Like
I'll have to look out for that.
Yeah, you can't miss it. It's not like a blink and you miss thing. It's right there. Like you almost can't miss it, but you'll see. But yeah, dinosaurs. I mean, it makes sense. But yeah, then we get into some, a '90s comic book film that kind of transcends almost into just straight up action movie. Blade, for its 25th anniversary, we're gonna revisit. Which this is another one I haven't sat down and watched start to finish in a while.
Another first time watching.
You never seen Blade? I think you're in for a treat. Wesley Snipes is awesome, as he usually is. It's got one of the great opening scenes, I think, in comic book history that I would argue for. Really good. Again, sets up a great mythology with these vampires and such, and with Blade. But yeah, I think it's just kind of it's a fun, kick-ass action movie, with some comic book roots. So I think you'll dig it, Jacob. When we get to it, we'll talk about it, and then we'll talk about one of my favorite horror movies of all time, a movie I talk about a lot, The Faculty, 25th anniversary, baby, for The Faculty. Have you seen this one?
Nope, another first time watch. Yeah, 3 of these are going to be first time watches for me.
Oh, wow. You're in for a treat with The Faculty, man. I love The Faculty. We'll get to it, more detail, but you know me, I'm a Body Snatchers guy, and it's kind of a takeoff of the Body Snatchers story, but it's like a post-Scream sort of Body Snatchers because it's written by Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream. And directed by Robert Rodriguez, coming off of From Dusk Till Dawn and Desperado. Yeah, he was on fire in the '90s. And another I won't even go into it here, but when you watch this movie, you will recognize damn near every person in this movie. I mean, everybody is somebody that plays a part in this movie. So yeah, really deep cast, really breezy, fun movie. I think you'll dig it. So we'll talk about it. It's a ton of fun.
I'm excited to watch all of these. Actually, even We're Back.
Have you seen The Fugitive? You seen The Fugitive before?
I haven't. No.
Wow, you haven't seen The Fugitive? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, we're of course the only one I've seen out of these 4 is the animated movie.
no, I mean that makes sense. But man, you're in for a treat. I think the other 3 movies are all great. I think you're gonna have a good time with all of them. So yeah, it should be an interesting discussion. Yes, very good movies.
Yeah, so that's what we'll be covering the next time we go live. But Austin, anything else you got coming up in the near future?
No, I mean, it's kind of a lighter week, both for the Movie Hero Network and me personally. So, yeah, we've just got a tier ranker on Friday here on the channel. We'll be continuing the one-word series. So 2000s one-word movie titles on a tier ranker. So we got that list, a little over 100 movies for that, which we've had for each one. There's a lot of one-word titles. But yeah, our last episode ended up being a lot tougher than we thought going into it. Next week will be another tier ranker. We're going to slide in another one with post-apocalyptic movies on a tier ranker. Yeah, so hey, well, we wanted to get some more tier rankers in there and mix it up a little bit. We've had a lot of tournaments lately, so we've got those. Obviously, we'll be back with Lonely Marks, me and you and the rest of the gang. Next Thursday, we'll be talking
Yep.
payback, a little bit all out because it depends on how much we see of it, and a random Thunder episode that we spun on the wheel the other day. So
Yeah, I'm curious to see if it's as good or better than the Nitro that we watched. I'm
it's
thinking
hard to
it'll be
tell
better
because
based on the year.
I've been watching some 1998 Nitros and they're not great either. So the Monday Night Wars in general, not as great as we remember it. A lot of good moments, not as many great wrestling shows overall. But we'll talk about
Kind
it.
of regretting that we took NXT off the wheel, but
Well, yeah, we wanted to go a little more retro than I think our limit on the wheel is like 2010, so we got to keep it before then to keep it somewhat retro. But yeah.
Yeah, so that
Hey,
that'll be
you're getting a wrestling education, Jacob. On some older
true.
stuff.
That's true. It'll
Good,
help him
bad, or
out.
ugly. You're getting some. What I love about those shows, you just never know who's going to come through that damn curtain, which is interesting
Right.
back then. So who you're going to see?
Maybe it'll help in our
trivia.
trivia because you can go back yesterday. Austin and I were in the teams match on the Pierce Wrestling channel, taking on the Lemieux Lords in the Wrestling with Trivia Tag Team Tournament. So you can go check that out and see if we moved on or not. Spoilers, we did.
Yeah.
But go see how we got there. Fun questions. Even if I know who wins, like I'll go back and watch the matches just to see how well would I have done.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, other than that, like I don't really have much until Lonely Marks next week. So I'm just gonna kind of take it easy.
Watch some movies.
It's fantasy football season, so
football's starting up soon. Yeah, I mean, you're excited for that. My Jaguars are starting up soon. I hope they have another good season this year.
I think they will. Yeah, I think it's just building on last season. I think they're gonna do well. Who knows? Maybe we'll get surprised this season and we'll have a Seahawks Jaguars Super Bowl.
Hey, and then we can do a post-match breakdown right here on a podcast about football. I mean, a podcast about movies.
No, football season's coming, so I'm excited. But yeah, no, it's a fairly light week, but still, hit that subscribe button, like the video. But if you didn't like the video, then tell somebody you really hate that this was a fantastic episode to watch this. But if you liked it, then thank you. If you watched live, thank you. If you're watching on the replay, also thank you. Let us know what you think about these 4 movies again. It was Risky Business, Return of the Jedi, Mississippi Burning, and My Neighbor Totoro. I think these are all 3 of these are really good, and one of them I'd say watch it and form your own opinion on it.
But I think next week's going to be mostly positive. We're Back could be just a silly, goofy, fun one, but I think we're going to have some really good movies again. Fugitive, We're Back, A Dinosaur Story, Blade, and The Faculty for next time here on a podcast about movies. So,
so hit that bell so you're notified when we go live. It's not always the same time. Again, we usually go on Saturdays. It's not Saturday, it's a Wednesday. Hit the bell. So you will know when we are live, but not only for this show, but also for tournament fights, tier rankers, Seed and Herd. Jordan's planning the big free for all coming up pretty soon. Wheel of Movies, which we'll get back to that soon. Jordan's, life happens.
He's starting a new job. He's got some new things going on, so we'll get to it probably next week. So
maybe I'll have him send me the wheel and I'll spin it. We'll see.
Hey. That thing is huge. It's a big file.
That's why I was like, just send me the wheel. Don't send me all the movies because I don't want to make my own wheel. But again, thank you guys for watching. This has been a podcast about movies. I'm Jacob. That's Austin. And we will see you next time.